Hi, in this unit we're going to talk about reporting and analysis. There are 4 learning goals. 1. To understand the key concepts that are involved in enterprise reporting. 2. To describe and to run 2 major tools, BACS Analyzer and BACS Web Analyzer. And 3. To perform navigation and do OLAP analysis using the 2 tools. And lastly, to configure the 2 tools, BACS Analyzer and BACS Web Analyzer. The first key concept, what is reporting? As shown here, reporting is the transformation of information into value. Okay, and how do you do that? In order to provide value, business information must be sought and found, and then analyzed, and finally used for decision making. It's kind of related to the closed loop analysis I talked about before. I mean, you have to take action based on your BI reports. And also, as shown here, intelligent reporting solutions, such as BW, they must support well-known multi-channel distribution, easy access to information, easy to use, and also improve decision making. Okay, now, as a side note, this is a good example of the need for academic research for your research project. Okay, I get questions all the time from students that, well, I'm interested in comparing SAP BW with different products from Microsoft, from Oracle, and so on. Okay, why can't I just compare those products directly? Why do I need to read academic journal articles? Okay, now my response would be, well, what is the basis of your comparison? Okay, how do you judge one product is better than the others? Academic journal articles will tell us the theories or the concepts that are needed for a good product for a particular business problem. Okay, based on this slide, for instance, certain criteria are specified. For instance, multi-channel distribution, easy access, easy to use, improve decision making, and so on. Okay, so you have some basis that you can use for the evaluation of products on the marketplace based on this one academic research. Okay, now I'm not saying that you have to use this one or this one is the appropriate one. Okay, it is up to your research to find out the most sound basis for your judgment. Okay, but again, that's the reason for using academic journal articles in your research. Okay, another key concept here is that the role of reporting in the closed loop process. In this process, we begin at the top plan, okay, or a manager or an analyst, whatever, they would develop and then implement some kind of business plans and initiatives. Okay, and after that, in the process, they go into monitor. Okay, to monitor the performance, and then after that, then data is collected and analyzed. Okay, and then actual performance is compared to goals, and finally, in the act phase, the business plans, initiatives, and so on, they are updated based on the analysis results. Okay, so in this closed loop analysis, reporting plays an important role in the analysis phase. Okay, on this slide, it shows that another study was conducted to survey 386 executives to find out information about their BI use. Here, basically, it is saying that BI is used by not just managers. Okay, basically, it is used by all employees. So, what the title says, putting information to work. I think maybe a better title is putting information to workers. Okay, so because basically everybody can benefit from the use of BI. Next, another study was conducted to find out the different media through which BI was delivered. And as you can see in the diagram, the most popular medium for BI data or BI consumption is actually the email. Okay, so email was the most popular medium for that, followed by spreadsheet, and followed by paper documents actually. So what the study says that even though BI is supposed to be high tech, but paper is still widely used as a means to distribute BI to the end users. Okay, so this is another interesting study about the use of BI in companies. So we have covered some general concepts related to reporting. Next, let's take a look at how reporting is done using SAP BW. Fundamentally, reporting is performed in two steps. Okay, the first step is that you want to create a query so that you can select certain data from an info provider. Now we've talked about info providers before. One of them is InfoCube, which is shown on this slide here actually. So this InfoCube has 3 dimensions, for instance. Okay, dimension material, dimension time, and dimension sales organization or sales office. Okay, so based on these 3 dimensions, the data warehouse can store millions, if not millions, maybe tens of thousands of records. All right. So when we produce a report, we don't need to display all the records in a cube. Okay. Instead, we probably want to display just a portion of the cube that satisfies users' requirements. Okay. For instance, on the right-hand side, you see that the user is trying to get the data for a particular material, mountain bikes, for a particular year, 2006, and in the sales office in the United States. Okay, so that is called slicing, dicing, all part of all labor operations, which we'll talk more about in detail later on. Okay, but again, in the first step, we want to create a query so that only selected data are retrieved from the info provider from BW, so that the data is displayed in the second step using a desktop tool to display the data that is required for end users. And we'll take a look at the 2 steps in more detail on the next 2 slides. All right, so the first step is, again, to create a query, and we will actually talk about the tool that we'll be using to create queries, the query designer, in a separate chapter. Okay, but briefly, the query designer allows us to select whatever key figures and characteristics from the info provider so that we can present the data in the report. Okay, the query does not store data. Okay, the query only allows data to be retrieved from the info provider, and then the query has certain elements to make sure that only required data is retrieved. Okay. Supposedly, the end user, the manager, the analyst does not need to have any programming background in order to build a query. Okay, it's a pretty easy to use tool that we will talk more about in a separate chapter. And so once a query is created, it is then saved in BW. Then it can be executed so that relevant data is retrieved into a desktop tool. In a lot of the cases, the tool is Microsoft Excel because that being the most popular spreadsheet used in corporations nowadays. Okay, so SAP also has created an add-in function so that query results can be displayed in Excel. So you need to turn on the add-in feature in order to use the BACS analyzer and other tools that we'll talk about later. Okay, so there are also some other tools that we may use to display the query results. One being at the bottom of the screen there, it shows one being the dashboards, which, by the way, you have already used in your first assignment.